Avi. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Avi Rubin, and I'm a computer science professor at Johns Hopkins University. I'm technical director of the Johns Hopkins Information Security Institute, and I direct the Health and Medical Security Lab at Johns Hopkins. I was asked to comment to you today on general security issues for large web installations, and specifically about security issues that could affect a site such as Healthcare.gov. As we all know from reading the press, Healthcare.gov got off to a rocky start. And as a software engineer, it's not surprising to me that this happened. When we think about large systems and rolling out a large software system, the way this is typically done by companies such as Google and Amazon and other companies that roll out large software services, they roll it out in a small way to some controlled number of users. They identify bugs and problems with the system. They fix those. They get the system stable, and then they scale it up to a larger number of users. Once again, they discover that now there are all kinds of new problems based on the bigger scale. Why would that be? Because of increased communication requirements, storage, and what we might call race conditions that happen when you have a lot more users than you had before. And so then someone rolling out a large software package will roll it out to more users, get it stable, and keep rolling it out. It's not very common to roll out a huge system with a ton of users on one day, and so it wasn't surprising to me that there were a lot of problems when this was initially rolled out. Another thing is that when a software project gets behind schedule, it's not very easy to recover from that. You might think, well, just add more developers to it. But in software engineering, it's well understood that when you add additional programmers to a late software project, you often make it later. In Healthcare.gov, there are many interoperating components and links to many different systems, including the IRS, the Social Security Administration, Department of Homeland Security, Experian, state exchanges, and many more. And we know, as was stated earlier, that the more complex the system, the more vulnerabilities there will be, the more interfaces there are, and the greater likelihood of problems. We also know, and it's been stated, that there are great risks to high-profile websites. We hear breaches reported in the major media all of the time, and the attackers are growing in their creativity, sophistication, talent, and resources. In fact, just last week, there was a report of a denial-of-service attack against Healthcare.gov. Maintaining a secure website is not easy, especially if it manages sensitive information, if it requires ongoing maintenance, keeping up with vendor patches, requiring highly skilled administrators, reporting mechanisms for reporting incidents, contingency plans, and the list goes on. I provided a longer list in my written testimony. And all of that said, the computer industry has many success stories. There are large, complex websites that have no major breaches that I know of. Examples of these are the airline reservation system, which manages a very complex array of interdependencies, and even other sites like Orbitz and Travelocity, which have to tap into those airline reservation systems. Large social media sites, Facebook and LinkedIn, they get attacked all of the time, and yet there hasn't been, to my knowledge, a major compromise of these top sites that in a wholesale manner exposed all the private information of the users. We have Amazon.com, a shopping site. And while no system is perfect, there are best practices in the industries that work well for the most part. In my written testimony, I provided a list of best practices and recommendations for the Healthcare.gov website. I don't have time in my oral testimony to go into them, but to summarize what they are about, I suggest a review of the security annually by outside experts, focusing on the interfaces among the components and across systems, reviewing authentication mechanisms, checking for known standard vulnerabilities such as SQL injection attacks, sanitization of user inputs, cross-site scripting, and we have a long list of technical things to look for. Data at rest should be encrypted, and the keys should be managed carefully, just like all of those sites that I mentioned do. There should be mandatory incident reporting and contingency plans in place for every possible conceivable scenario. The list of recommendations that I've submitted is partial, But I believe that with the proper administration and the proper expertise, a website such as Healthcare.gov can be deployed in a practical manner. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I look forward to addressing your questions in the Q&A.